The first batch of Clinton emails, the ones that were saved anyway, are released. We have the details. Will we see a compromise out of the Senate on a surveillance bill? The White House hopes so. Our own Rick Unger unleashed again in New York City to talk to the masses about Memorial Day. Governor Mike Huckabee stands by child molester Josh Duggar. Will this move hurt his chances for the White House? We talk about that and more. This is The Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And on the Wrap, my co-host and SiriusXM radio host, Rick Unger, back from the streets unscathed.
Back from the streets.
To his right, Philly attorney and America's pundit. She is Heather Hansen. She's back. And finally, she's the co-host of Close Encounter, and you're not, Lisa Jandovitz, with glasses tonight. Always changing her brand. Back again.
Get that different look every time.
It's true. Big Friday, everybody. Let's do the daily download. Today, 300 emails released from the Clinton camp, more than 54,000 ago. The State Department has released nearly 300 of Mrs. Clinton's private emails pertaining to the events before and after the 2011 Benghazi attack. But Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy, chairman of the Benghazi Committee, is clearly unimpressed. In a statement, he says, and we quote, "To assume a self-selected public record is complete when no one with a duty or responsibility to the public had the ability to take part in the selection requires a leap in logic no impartial reviewer should be required to make." At a campaign stop in New Hampshire today, Clinton talked about the email release.
I'm glad that the emails are starting to come out. This is something that I've asked to be done, as you know, for a long time, and those releases are beginning. I want people to be able to see all of.
Now, Democratic Congressman Elijah Cummings, who also sits on the Benghazi committee, had this to say about the emails, and we quote, "The American public can now read all these emails and see for themselves that they contain no evidence to back up claims that Secretary Clinton ordered a stand down, approved an illicit weapons program, or any other wild allegations Republicans have made for years." Very interesting Mr. Cummings knew that, considering they were just released. Anyway, some emails do reveal that shortly after the attack, Clinton was advised that it may have been connected to al-Qaeda and not a spontaneous reaction to an anti-Islam video. And we've also learned that one email release was classified by the FBI today, citing national security concerns. The email relates to reports of possible arrests in Libya. The email wasn't classified at the time, but it's raising questions now about the security of sensitive emails on Clinton's private server. Heather Hansen, is this a problem for Mrs. Clinton?
Listen, we ask that question every day,
We do,
and
don't we?
every day Rick says, no, it's not a problem.
That's why I
We
went
say,
to you
yes,
first.
it is a problem. But listen, I've read some of the emails, as many as I could get through this afternoon before we came here.
Your
and
eyes were getting very
oh
glazed.
my
Yeah.
goodness gracious. You know, there's some interesting stuff in there. Bob Gates, who we talked about last night, sent condolences to Hillary after the death of some of her staff, you know, after the Benghazi attacks, as did Netanyahu. Those were the only two that sent emails. I mean, there may have been phone calls. There's stuff like that that is interesting, but there's no smoking gun, there's no big bomb. You do have the note that the FBI has since classified some information. Just think, if she had just used the State Department server, all this trouble, you know, how many people, they've hired a huge number of people to go through these and scan these and check these, all at taxpayers' expense. It is just ridiculous, but there's no smoking gun that I've seen so
Oh,
far.
of course, and then there wouldn't be if you could control the evidence. Now,
That's
let me
right.
ask you a question.
Well,
Let me
yeah.
ask you a question as
Because I have lots
a
of fun
Democrat.
stuff here.
If Dick Cheney had done this and kept his emails on a private server, what do you think the reaction would be?
He would have been pounded.
Yeah.
No question. Yeah, listen, you have never heard me defend her doing that. I think it was a terrible mistake. But I do have to say this. First of all, Gowdy's statement is ridiculous. All he's saying is, why are we bothering? If you're not going to believe anything about the emails anyhow, and I take his point, she did go through them, she did erase stuff, well then why are we bothering to
He
collect
wants
them
the
and distribute them? Well, okay, so go for the server.
ask you
But
about-
I got
Yeah,
something
go ahead.
even bigger, because we talked about the email that she got suggesting that al-Qaeda might have been involved, right? And today, the conservative media is all over this. Do you know who that email came from? Sidney Blumenthal. Now this
To
is
H, by the way.
Yes, to H.
Interesting.
They're all
Right.
to H,
This
yeah.
is the same Mr. Blumenthal that for the past 4 days the conservative media has been pounding because he was sending emails to Hillary that she was redistributing, and he didn't work for the State Department. And why is she listening to him? And why is she passing these along? But when there's an email that suggests that Hillary knew 2 days after that it was Al-Qaeda and she didn't announce it to the public, she didn't take Mr. Blumenthal's word for it without any research and announce it, now she held back information. The logic gap here is just ridiculous, and shame on people who are saying
We
that.
were talking before, and I just want to make this point quickly because we have to move on, about me having the ability to watch Game of Thrones and all these shows.
Yeah.
We talked about this right before we came in here, literally like
Right.
5 seconds.
All this time.
If she erased 30,000 emails, how did she have the time to even write 30,000 emails? When you're the Secretary of State, you're a
I think
busy
it was
person.
her
Emails, if you read these
Staff.
emails, it's please print.
Yeah.
Her
Okay.
emails
Yeah.
are not. The emails
Still
to her are a
30,000
little bit.
please
But
print.
30, yeah, it's.
But it's also her staff, I suspect, who played a larger role.
yeah.
Okay.
There's
Boy.
a lot from, not
Well.
that many.
And now, new questions about the Clinton Foundation. Check out this headline in the Washington Post. Clinton Foundation reveals up to $26 million in additional payments. The Post says the payments came from major corporations, universities, foreign sources, and other groups. Critics have questioned whether Hillary Clinton rewarded big donors from foreign countries during her time as Secretary of State. The latest revelations come a week after we learned Bill and Hillary made $30 million on speeches and book royalties since last year. Lisa, does this, boy, we always ask this question, should Hillary Clinton be worried about this aspect?
I don't know that she should be worried about it at this time. I would think normally, but it's Hillary, so I don't know that this is going to affect her. Again, this is another revelation of donations to the foundation. In this case, many of these donors, or it was listed as revenue, have ties to foreign governments. So it raises the question: is there any conflict of interest? Not only when she was Secretary of State, but should she become President of the United States? Is there a conflict of interest there with any of these donors?
Sometimes shavings make a pile, and where it just smells.
Not
You
gonna
know, I
matter.
know
And by
it's
the
not
way-
going to matter, but it's just a culmination of things.
Just some quick cleanup.
Quickly.
They did report it to the IRS. It's not about that. What they did was further violate the agreement with the Obama administration, where they promised to disclose those things. That was wrong. They shouldn't have done it. Big mistake. It's not going to matter, folks.
I'm just saying
say
they
that a
they
lot.
can't seem to stay on message. This is all we're talking about, all they're talking about. Anyway, let's talk about a potential Hillary Clinton challenger, Marco Rubio. Check out this headline in the not so conservative New York Times. Prospect of Hillary Clinton-Marco Rubio matchup unnerves Democrats. We'll ask Rick about that in a moment. So, yes, it appears that they're concerned about the 43-year-old son of Cuban immigrants could take Latino voters away from Mrs. Clinton. And they're also concerned about the generational divide. Mrs. Clinton turned 69 just before the election. Mr. Rubio, not very good at math, but that's 25 years younger?
Quite a bit.
Wow,
Yes.
yeah, so should Democrats be worried? That is our theme
Do
here.
I look unnerved? I'm testing here.
Okay.
Uh,
Of all the candidates, who would concern you most if you're running the Clinton
Actually,
campaign?
Jeb Bush concerns
Bush,
me
really?
the most. I think Rubio is going to run into a buzzsaw should he get the nomination. There's much to be known about him in his early days in Miami that I don't think will be helpful. I understand the concern over Latino voters. I think Jeb Bush poses that same problem because his wife is Mexican.
Heather?
Yeah, I don't disagree about the concern over the Latino voters, but I think the generational thing is something that is going to be more of an issue. You know, just as, and the article talks about this, just as Barack Obama came along and went
McCain.
for the young,
Yeah.
you know, the young people and beat Hillary, and, you know, it is definitely going to be an issue, and it's an issue that Rubio is capitalizing on. You know, he talks about, I am the new generation, she is the old, and I think you're going to see more and more in that as we move forward.
I think the only difference between a McCain and an Obama, McCain looked old.
He did.
And
And he was
Obama,
cranky.
and yeah, and he looked like the get off
Yeah.
my lawn guy. And Obama, you know, before he was gray, looked, you know,
Right.
very, very young. Hillary, when you dress her up and you put the makeup on and everything, doesn't look
Except
old to
young,
me.
Young folks aren't going for Rubio. They might go for Rand Paul, but I don't think they're going for
I
Rubio.
think
Just
they
because
will.
he's young, they're
I
not
think
going
they
for him.
will.
It's not so much
He
his
thinks old.
age, though. It's what he represents, and I think that could be an issue for her. He represents, no matter how much Hillary needs to distance herself from Barack Obama, but yet she can't completely because she served as Secretary of State. So he's about as far away from Obama, and he is the future, and he is
And
young.
he's a
so all of those
Republican.
things, exactly. But
Young people tend not to go Republican. They may go
depending-
Libertarian.
Well, it depending on his message, and he could possibly also take the Latino vote.
That's true. Gotta go.
Just a
Coming
bigger
up
chunk.
next, will Senate Republicans come up with a compromise for the controversial NSA surveillance program? We talk about that next. Stick around.